Today's episode is sponsored by Working Not Working. Katie and I are literally always talking about working smarter instead of harder. And with Working Not Working, you can do just that. You can instantly upload your creative profile to Working Not Working, and it'll unlock your access to tons of amazing, both full-time and freelance opportunities with some of the most innovative companies in the world. If you're looking to hire, look no further. You can discover, interview, and hire directly within the platform. You'll have access to so many amazings in this creative community. Plus, there's a flexible and budget-friendly subscription and no commissions. So check out Working Not Working today to learn more. I actually remember discovering Working Not Working and being in a time where I was so anxious to get work. And it was incredible, the amount of skill and the amount of insane, really high level brands that were on the platform already, even when it was first starting. It's an amazing opportunity. You can discover and connect with so many people. So check it out today. Don't worry if we screw it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm excited you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is my first podcast, so
No
I am
way.
honored. Yeah, it is.
Okay, the pressure's on. I feel like
I know.
Crush this.
No, for me, not for you. I am.
No. It's on me. I got to make it a good interview. Okay, well, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I am Lucy Eden. I am a brand designer and content creator. I live in Oklahoma. I'm 22 years old. I've been doing this I've been a designer for about 4 years now, but brand design specifically for only about a year and a half. So very fresh and new. And yeah, so I love doing this. I love the content creation side, especially. That is what I have found I love. I love the client work as well, but being able to create content and have freedom with that and create in that way is so unique. And I just love when you work with clients, you don't have as much control. And when you work like content creation, it's so much more freeing and you get to experiment a lot. So I love that. But anyways, that is just kind of who I am, I guess, basically. Yeah.
I love it. I love that perspective. And I think it possibly comes with being kind of fresh in the industry because you're watching these things unfold and you still have that desire to be experimental with social media and try things. I found you on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw you on TikTok and then realized you were also over on Instagram because you never know. Not everyone's on both.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit? I have so many more questions. So many things are coming into my brain right now. Tell me you have ADHD without telling me you have ADHD. But first, can we just talk about where you started on social media? Because that's how I found you. And then I realized you were on Instagram. So did you start on TikTok? Did you start on Instagram? You didn't know you love social media, I'm guessing, until you started sharing it and seeing that people related to it? Or did you just have this calling to be on social media?
Yeah, I was on social media, obviously for a long time. So I first wanted to be a photographer. So my account now was actually initially a photography account. And that kind of didn't work out. I was hitting a wall with photography. I still love photography, but it just wasn't working out career-wise. So eventually when I transitioned to doing design, which was 2019, when I discovered Illustrator and everything and started actually realizing that this was a career, because I had no idea design was even a career. So
wow,
when that happened, I started actually posting more designs. And I started just on Instagram. So I was posting the worst content ever, honestly, a white post with a little logo in the middle. And it's obviously
who hasn't done that?
Seriously, that was my whole feed. I was oh, it looks so clean. It looks amazing. But it's no, that's why they got 10 likes. Yeah, no, not at all. But so I was on Instagram for a long time with my family and friends following me, not really doing anything. And after a while, I was really trying to step up my game with social media and be viral and get more followers and try and gain an audience there because I saw so many people doing that. But it just wasn't happening for a while on Instagram. And eventually my husband was you should get on TikTok because TikTok is where things are happening. That's where you can really get big. And I had tried before because I had TikTok. I was familiar with it, but nothing had happened when I first tried it. My content didn't get any attention and I gave up way too easily. I was just I'm done. It's not happening. But I listened to him and I went back on TikTok and I posted a few things and they ended up getting attention this time. And I was okay, maybe he's right. Maybe I should keep going. And so I kept going and I was posting processes of my designs. or just like tutorials of how to do things in like Photoshop or Illustrator, things like that. And like I just kind of steadily kept growing, and that was like really encouraging. I was like getting clients from that. And I really was just posting kind of whatever. It really wasn't too strategic, or just, it was just kind of whatever. So I grew on TikTok for a while, and then eventually I wanted to grow on Instagram. So this was the end of last year, actually, that I was growing on TikTok. And I wanted to bring that over to Instagram a little bit, because I feel like Instagram has more of like a community sense. Like TikTok is more just like transactional. You'll post something and people will follow you. You'll have a good following, but it's not like you really can like communicate with people that much. And like, I don't know, I just don't feel like it that much on TikTok.
Not in the DMs. You're not
yeah, right. It just doesn't feel like as communal. So I just steadily grew on TikTok, and then that kind of translated over to Instagram eventually. And Instagram kind of became my focus. And as I grew, I was like steadily getting clients, inquiring, and it was just like kind of overwhelming at first, because like at the time I was working as a like in-house designer, like contracted with a few people, and like I was super new to brand design. So it was like a really quick entry into this, and like I didn't have a lot of experience in it. So that was overwhelming, but it was a great experience at the same time to be able to work with all those clients and get that experience really quickly. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of a basic intro on how I got into social media.
Story. When I started TikTok, I was like, I'm in my 30s. Like, I'm not welcome here. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. And I did like a dancing video with like pointing to things. Like I fell for the trap. And I saw like traction on one video, and then like not viral, but like did better than the other ones. And then the next video had like 0 views. And I immediately was like, I'm shadow banned. And I deleted the account and I started a new one, which I've had to this day. This was like within the first 2 weeks of joining. And it was so funny how like I genuinely fell for this idea that like someone out there was like punishing me for doing something wrong. And like, it's an algorithm. Like, I'm not going to fight. Yeah. Like, I'm not like in a war with a robot. I'm not here to play that game. I'm just here to have fun and maybe do some lead generation there. But it was so funny. I took it so seriously. And now I'm just kind of like, whatever, which is such a better attitude to have, because the lifespan of content, like as long as you're not being a dick, the lifespan of content is so short. Like, it's okay if you mess up. I think the videos that I'm most attracted to are the ones where people are being authentic and like they drop the phone and you're like, oh, they fucking dropped it in a puddle. I probably shouldn't be talking on here.
There have been so many instances like that where I have like messed up in a video, or like it's up, like this happened yesterday. I uploaded a video and the like colors were like wrong, like because sometimes Instagram will like do that. And I was like so frustrated, but it's like, it still did really well. Like it doesn't matter. And you just like get really caught up in like these little things that you think people will care about, but like they just really don't.
They really don't. And the color, like sometimes when we have a mistake in something, we're like, whatever, someone will point it out and then they'll comment and then more people will say it. And then it'll just help the algorithm. Like,
no, that's true.
A lot of people are commenting and you're like, oh no, they're hating, but it's still like more people are seeing it now. That's so funny.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll happen like all the time with like brand designs, like because I'll post processes and like process of like creating a brand from like start to finish, like creating a logo or something like that. And if like all these people want to call out something about it, because people love to do that with like logos, they're like, oh, it looks like this, like I see this in there, but they're just like commenting and like boosting the post. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
Right?
I'm just not going to read it. Yeah, love it.
So okay, so did you have any formal training in photography or graphic design?
No, none. I
love that.
Didn't go to college at all. So I feel like
can we get a round of applause? I feel like that is such a great reminder that like, because Katie and I both have traditional graphic design degrees and we are constantly saying we loved it. We had a great experience. We learned a lot, but you do not need one to be successful in this world.
It's always a super big debate about that. And I'm always trying to figure out what end I fall on sometimes, even though it may seem obvious, because so I have 2 brothers and none of us went to college. And like, I feel like we're very, very unique in that way, but our parents were just like they just really allowed us to take a different path and like they saw potential in us in different ways. So I think I'm really thankful for that. But with the route of going to school, I really sometimes wish that I had that experience and was able to like maybe make certain connections and learn certain things that maybe took me a long time to figure out on my own. But I feel like learning on your own is also just a really great experience. And I think it really works only if you're really passionate about something and you really have like the drive to learn about it, because you have to be really disciplined and really like have your sights set on this target. Because if not, you're probably going to like trail off and start learning about other things. But if you're really passionate about it and you really want to learn about it, you're going to consistently like just figure out what you need to know and then seek out the resources to learn it. And I've so my route for like learning everything has been mainly like experience. And I think that's like the most powerful tool. And I've heard so many people that went to school like say that they just like didn't learn this or didn't learn that, like didn't learn the programs or like these really important things you need to know. But I feel like just on your own, you like naturally learn the most important stuff first, and then like things will fall into place. So I don't know. I think it's really a unique path to take. And I think anyone can, especially in this career with design, because it's very creative. But there's also that like business side of things, which is very hard to learn on your own, and the side of just like communicating with clients. So there's subtleties that are hard to pick up on, and like you might learn better in school. But I think either route is honestly super, super like anyone can do either.
That's definitely where Katie and I fall too, is like either route, whichever route's going to work best for you, for the way you process, for the way you live your life, whatever is going to work best for you. I wouldn't trade my experience going to school. I learned so much. But like you said, the business side of things, I didn't learn any of that in school. And I minored in communication marketing. So I was like, oh, I'm going to set myself up. And then I had an opportunity to go back for my MBA. And I was like, I'd rather just figure it out on my own, which in hindsight, like that probably would have been a really great experience knowing where I am now. But they don't teach you the business stuff in school. And I think that's something that a lot of colleges need to like get on track with. But hopefully Katie and I can fill in some of those gaps for artists out there. But I think, to each their own. Both experiences are valid and wonderful experiences. And a big round of applause for your parents for just seeing potential in you in whatever way was best for you. I think that's really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
You don't need the formal training. There's things like Skillshare, Domestika, and there's so many YouTube. I mean, come on, YouTube's amazing. We've learned so many things, Katie and I we're running this business that there are so many things every day that we're like, how does one do that? And thank goodness for the internet. Okay. So,
and I feel like because like there are so many resources, and as I figured out like where I want to take this business, because again, I am like so new, like I've been doing this full time for like a year now, like barely over a year. So, and as I've worked with clients and like also had this educational side of things, I have wanted to like gear more towards the educational side. And I feel like a good, like something I really want to do and somewhere I really want to position myself is just providing a resource for those people who can't go to school or don't want to go to school, like something that is much more attainable and will teach them like everything that they need to know. So I feel like that's something that I could start working towards at some point. I haven't really finalized that thought, but that is something that I like to do. And like I kind of already position myself to do with like social media and stuff, but it's a little more scattered, like education. But
you've got time to figure that out. I think having that energy and being that fresh is really wonderful. Do you feel like you still have a passion for sharing? You said at the beginning that you love the social media side of things, like the content creation. Do you still have a passion for that? Or do you feel like it comes in ebbs and flows?
I think right now I feel really passionate about it and like really excited about it. I feel like I have so many ideas all the time, and I just have this long list of things I want to create videos about. But I definitely think it's in like ebbs and flows. There have been times where I'm just like so behind on creating content and I can't think of any ideas. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to keep doing this forever. Like I'm going to run out of ideas. And it just like feels like everything is like walls are like caving in. But I think right now I'm definitely in a season where I feel very excited about like creating and social media. So I think it's definitely ups and downs. But
how do you manage that? Like, I think every entrepreneur, creative entrepreneur in some sense, whether they're an influencer, whether they're a photographer, graphic designer, has a running list of like a million ideas that they want to pursue, whether it's content creation or personal projects, whatever it is. And I know for us, adding that extra layer of like documenting it does require more work. Like it makes the process longer because you need to set up, you need to like think about the frames you want to get, think about the perspectives. And like, I didn't know this, but a lot of people who do those cooking videos, like they're actually not in their kitchen. They're like by the closest window using a portable, whatever those things, like a hot plate. And they're like, this is where I get the best light. So I'm going to cook the whole meal right here. And I'm going to make you think that this is normal, but it's 100% not normal.
Yeah.
how do you manage all those like deadlines, ideas, like to keep it flowing? I know you said it, obviously it ebbs and flows, but when you sit down for the day, like how are you like, this is what I'm going to tackle today?
Well, for content creation, on Fridays, I have set that as the day where I like create content for the next week. So I'm never like scrambling to make a post. So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I post. So I post 3 times a week. And I've also over time figured out what a manageable schedule is for me, because I used to post every single day. And eventually, if you're posting every single day, at least for me, the content is going to get like watered down. And it's just prioritizing quantity over quality. And then
quality over quantity.
Yeah.
We want quality over
quantity. Yes. So I went down to like 4 times a week, and then eventually 3 times a week I found was like the most manageable. So on Fridays, I will create content for the next week. I'll kind of be thinking throughout the week, like I already kind of know today when I'm going to post every day next week. So sometimes I'll already have an idea, but Friday is like the content creation day. And for thinking of those ideas, I find that like I don't usually come up with ideas if I'm just like sitting and like brainstorming. It's just like so random. Like I'll think of something, or like I'll be doing something and I'm like, oh, this would make a great video. Like this would be great for people to learn about, or this would be really funny or something. So I have like a running note in like my notes app of like just all these different ideas and like the different categories, because you might have like learned about content pillars before, like just the different areas of content that you provide. So I have like educational content, inspirational content, and then like behind the scenes. So I kind of have those different categories outlined, and then I write the different ideas in those different categories.
My insides are like geeking out over this, because this is exactly what Katie and I do, is try and help people figure out like the pillars of their business and like how to make their business find that overlap between the different things. And I think a lot of artists struggle because they're like, well, I do want to do education, but I also just want to book jobs. And then I also want to like connect with my friends on this app or on like in this world, digital world. And they feel, oh, and I want to have a product shop. And oh, I want to like whatever, run a conference. And it's like they get so confused. But the thing is, each pillar and each kind of like core value of your business is going to have different topics that you talk about. And one of the most like important things that we've done is segmented our list and like our email list. And so some people are going to come for the educational content. Some people are going to come and they're not going to be type designers or illustrators or graphic designers. They're just going to be creatives who maybe want to hear from other creatives, or maybe they just want to hear about the business side. And actually, that's probably the most common email we get is like, hey, I'm a artist, but like one step removed, can I still join your program? And we'll, talk them through and see if it's a good fit. But I love that you said you have these different pillars and you have to brainstorm content in all of them. Like not every piece is going to be for everyone. And you have to remember that not everyone on social media is going to see every piece that you create, but that some things are for some people and some things are for other people. And like bringing it all together is kind of the sweet spot. So I love that you shared how you have those pillars. And I actually think that shows me that you do have quite a bit of knowledge about the business side of things. So that's great.
Thank you. Yeah. I think those are super important because it also helps like diversify your content quite a lot, because if you're just posting the same thing all the time, which some people do, because I think there is like the type of content you create and then also how you present that content. And people will have diversity in like the type of content they create with like education or inspiration or behind the scenes. And then they might always present in the same format where it's like a talking head or something. But I like to kind of have diversity in both, where I will present, educational content, behind the scenes, humorous content, and then have different like formats to present those as well. So there's just like a lot of diversity there, but it still kind of always have the same, like has the same common threads throughout them. So funny. I think that's important.
It is. I was listening to something this morning about someone in the surface design world, which is a huge part of Katie and my income streams. And the person who was interviewing them was like, that seems like a really small market. And the woman went on to like talk about how she made the market even smaller because she was kind of looking at a specific age demographic. And she was like, it doesn't really matter how small it is. The thing that matters is converting them. And so there's kind of two different like schools for, what is it? Schools for thought?
Schools of thought.
Schools of thought?
Yeah.
Listen, if there's like an idiom, I'm going to screw it up every single time. Too bad Katie's not here to correct me. So it was really interesting because, we want to grab people from all these different sectors and talk to them about the different aspects of our business. But not everyone. I think a lot of fresh designers get hung up on the idea that everyone who follows them could then turn into a client. but actually a lot of the people who follow you or engage with you are going to be your peers. And that's why it's so important. Like whenever I see a friend doing a sponsored post, I'm always like, oh, I better engage with that because then they can keep paying to do what they do. Like, I don't care if it's for Swiffer or for like a really great design product. I'm like, get it, girl, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's something huge with like branding as well, is figuring out, like, people always talk about like that quote or whatever. It's like, if you're appealing to everybody, you're like appealing to nobody. So you want to niche down and have a specific audience. But I think it's hard to find the balance of like, how specific should your audience be? Because you can also have like several audiences, but no matter what your audience is, you just want to know who you are talking to. And yeah, so that's huge with clients, because a lot of times my branding clients will be very general about who their audience is and like who they're attracting. They're like, well, we welcome everybody. And like, okay, obviously we all welcome everybody, but it's like, we need to kind of be more specific. Like, who is this audience? Who like do we want to attract with this business? Yeah. So that's something I think that I try and figure out as well, as figuring out like with the educational side of my business and also the client side, like, do I need to just target one? But I think you definitely can target both and create content for both, just like with those different pillars and just with different areas of your business. So
absolutely. It's kind of like when I look at an influencer, like a traditional influencer who, because like Katie and I have a large following, but I wouldn't consider us influencers, because I think an influencer, like that term, like in this day and age, is really different from just someone who has influence. And so I think of an influencer as someone who is basically, their job is to influence you into purchasing things. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because I am all about the like, oh, I'm going to click on that link and I'm going to buy it. But I think in that sense, like I really appreciate when they share more of their real life. And so there might be people, there's someone I follow who like talks a lot about mom life, and I have 2 kids. So I'm like, oh, I really love that about them. Oh, and then they shared it, like makes me trust them more. And I think the same goes for like designers. If you're sharing educational things, you're not only building awareness for other designers to come trust you and like you, but also for clients to be like, I love what they did. And it looks like they teach other people. They must have clout. They must know what they're talking about. So I think that's really great. Speaking of education and branding work, can you do a breakdown of what your income, like if you had to have a pie and you had all the different streams of income, you have your branding and you have your education, what are the other things that make up your pie?
Yeah. So client work is definitely the base piece of the pie right now. That would be like, let me think. I mean, at least half of the pie is income from client work. And then outside of that, there are brand deals, which will come about not super often. It's definitely ebbs and flows. And that would be probably another little piece of the pie, pretty substantial, but not huge because it does fluctuate. And then outside of that, I have my creator shop, which is templates at the moment. So those are downloadable templates for designers for different presentations. So as you go throughout a branding project, you'll present different things to the client, whether it be the entire branding or it's just like an onboarding meeting or you need a template for a questionnaire to send to them. I sell all of those in my shop so people can easily use those because they can be kind of hard to develop. But
are those like Illustrator, InDesign?
Yes. So they have InDesign and Illustrator templates. So, yeah. And that is another smaller piece of the pie. I opened that earlier this year, and that is just another little small portion. And then outside of that, I think that actually might be it at the moment. I am working on expanding into like courses and things like that. But yeah, at the moment, definitely majority client work and then brand deals and then template shop. But I would love to tip the scales a little bit more towards more passive income and more educational streams of content, because that is what I like to create. And the client work, I enjoy it, but I would love to maybe balance it out where I do less of it because it's very demanding, like especially mentally, just trying to work with clients sometimes. So being able to do more of the creation side and, you know, maybe having more brand deals and like, yeah, things on that side of the spectrum, I would love to do in the future.
Brand deals is like a whole other topic, which we can get into. But first, I'm curious if, because a lot of your content is like process or like, I guess this would kind of be process, but like showing how you do those, what do you call them? When it's
carousel posts?
Thank you. Yes. Like could not figure out that word. When you do like a carousel post, I've seen a couple of your videos like that. what happens when, because we've all done this, we've all been there, when either a client doesn't want you to be sharing their work because they like want it to be exclusive, or if you don't really like the client project, because as we all know, client projects are for the client. Like, yes, they're coming to you for your expertise, but it is just not always going to be exactly what you want because they are the boss. Like, they're in charge. And if they're not happy, you're not doing your job. And like, I don't mean to sound like, yeah, the designer does know better, but the person who knows the business best, and also they're hiring you, like they're in charge. It sucks sometimes. But have you ever had that happen where they're like, either I don't want you to share this on social media, or you're like, I don't want to share this on social media. I'm not proud of it. I don't like it. And what do you do in that case? Because your content relies on it.
Yeah, definitely the latter has happened more often than people saying that they don't want me to share it. Because I've only, like, there's one project when I've been under NDA and waited for a while to share it, but I did share it in the end. And otherwise, I think people are just like excited for me to share their branding, and like it's a little extra promotion for their business, I think. So no one's really said anything about that unless it's just like waiting a little bit to share it. But I have had projects where I am not thrilled with the end result. It's what the client wanted, and it was based on their direction. And I just don't share it because projects are like maybe a third of my content. But right now I have like 5 projects on the back burner that I'm spreading out throughout like the end of the year to share. So it's not like my content will plummet if I don't get to share this project. Like, I have some other stuff I can do. I really only share the content that I really love and I also want to attract more of, because some projects will end up great, but it's just not the style that I really want to attract more of. So I will I love it, but it's just, I won't post it because I want to focus on the style and type of clients that I want to attract more of. And even though like I will work with a variety of styles, I prefer to draw on this specific style that is more up my alley. And it's also really difficult, which you kind of touched on, with like working with clients and figuring out the balance between doing what they want and allowing them to take the lead, but also being in that position of being like the expert, and guiding them and like how much you should do that and how to communicate that like gracefully, because sometimes they will come back with feedback that is like negative and you have to kind of guide them and show them like, no, this will work for your business. Like, this, like, I am the expert here and this is going to work, but not be at a place where like, no, like I'm not doing what you want to do, like still being on their team the whole time.
I think that I know I experienced this when I was a young designer, and I still learn with every single project. I learn something I should have done or something I can do better. But when I first started, I just expected that people would be like, do what you want. And I didn't realize that there was this, not burden, but like this weight that we take on as the designer or the creative director or whatever, to educate the client on what design and what value design has, because they obviously see enough value to want to hire someone, but then they need to actually understand the power of design. And so you have to take on the role of becoming the educator and explaining that to them. And I think when you're young or new or just like not confident, you have a hard time expressing, hey, this is why this is important. This is why I went through all this, without showing them every step of your process. Like, I tested it at 8 points and then I tested it at 24 point and it looked horrible. So that's why I've changed it for this smaller one. Like, without showing them every single typeface you've looked at and explored, and without walking them through every single piece of the process, you still have to communicate to them the value and like what your process does look like to some degree, so that they know you're not just like randomly picking a font and being like, here you go, pick these random colors because they're pretty. And so you kind of have to give them some insight to it. And I think that can be really hard to do, and especially challenging for people who just want to work and deliver a final product. And that's why sometimes branding projects are not right for everyone. And Katie and I spent years doing branding projects, and some of them were great, some of them weren't so great. But one of the like green flags that we found was when someone comes to us with a mood board and it has all of our work on it, we're like, this is going to go smooth. But when someone comes to us and they have 8 other designers' works on it that they found on Pinterest, and like, no hate to Pinterest, we use it every day, we love it. It's just that's not what we're using it for. But they'll come and they'll be like, just do it like this. And it's like, then hire that designer. Hire the designer whose images you just pinned, because that's their style. And so I think if someone comes to us and is like, hey, these are the images in your portfolio that we really love, and here's why, then we're like, cool, you're going to be great. And I also think there's like several other red flags to look for before you book a client to hopefully, like you said, they're going to have some input and they might not like something, but hopefully they're going to trust you enough to give you an opportunity to explain why you would do this. And I think for us, the goal is always like the 0 revision process where you're just like, here you go. But, it's also conversational. Like it can be a really big investment and it's a huge piece of their identity as business owners. So
seeing it from both perspectives is like something really huge that I've been learning lately is like really seeing it like this is something that they're going to have for a really long time. And you should really be super mindful of that and intentional that they have something that they love, but also having your boundaries and knowing like, in some ways what is best for them a little bit better than they might in like certain areas of branding. Cause working with branding all the time, you should understand how it works. And I think also off of that, there is like so many things that I think people don't understand about branding. And you do have to really come from that educational standpoint, because looking back at like when I first started like wanting to be a brand designer, like I had no idea like how logos work, like how branding, like what even branding means. Like it's a very general term as a whole. So I think educating people is really huge with clients and making sure that they understand what this is going to be used for and what is going to get the best result in the end. So
yeah, I love that. Okay. So another thing you said that I just want to reiterate is that you post the work you want. Katie and I have both shifted our businesses over the years, and a huge piece of that comes from slowly shifting the work that you're sharing. So I used to take on web design. I used to take on package design, branding, illustration, wedding invitations, like all of it. And then when I decided, I was like, I'm never designing another wedding invitation. Like, even if you're my best friend, that sounds so harsh. Even if you're my friend, I won't do it. But honestly, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'll connect you to a great place that can do it, but I don't want to do it. And I like immediately took off every single project from my portfolio. I stopped posting about it. And that's like the first thing you can do. If you are posting work that you don't want to get, like the odds are you're making it harder for yourself. And so that often means, and for Katie and I, this meant creating licensing work without having a licensing portfolio. Like we just started making our portfolio and posting it, which now sounds so daunting because like who has time for that? But also making time for passion projects is like the most important thing you can do is like finding time for creativity. And at some stages in your business, it's going to look like it's very related to your business. But in some stages, it's going to look like doing something that has absolutely nothing to do with your business and just like clears your head. So I love that you said that you should post the work that you want. I think that's
great. And it's funny you mentioned passion projects because yesterday I, for the first time in so long, spent like half the day working on a passion project because I was just feeling so burnt out. And I was like working with some clients that when they're just picking apart your design and are not happy with it, you just like start to hate what you're doing. And you're just like, I suck. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm choosing a different career. So I was like, I need to like do a passion project and like go back to realizing why I love doing this and like realizing that like I can do this. Like I love doing this. So I spent like all day yesterday doing that. And it was like so refreshing. And I think everyone should spend time doing that. But I am so bad at reserving time for that. And I always feel like it needs to be like for something, like something productive. Cause like even with that, I did make like a reel with it, but it doesn't always have to be for content or for business. It could just be for you to kind of have a refresh. So
I also struggle with that. And I struggled with this a lot when I started my business. I was like, every second of every day that I have available needs to be productive. And that was such a toxic mindset. And now I'm so much better at it. But that's mostly because I have 2 kids. And like by 8:30 at night, I'm like, there's no way I could possibly be productive. And so I've like built little routines into my day, whether it's like I do a closing shift at our house. We have our morning routine, which is basically like getting kids out the door, which like any parent listening is going to be like, yeah, that's not even a routine. That's just like pure chaos. But it's true. Like I go to the gym every morning at 6 a.m. We have these like little moments where it's like, if I have done nothing else by 9 a.m. except for like get my kids out the door and gone to the gym, like that's productive. And yeah, I had that toxic mentality of like every minute needs to be productive. And now when I do have time to do something that is just for fun, I'm like, wow.
Wow. It feels like so
no
good.
Strings attached. It feels so good. Okay. Speaking of passion project, what is your dream project?
Oh man, I don't know. I love like anything that's like plant shops, coffee shops, maybe like a pottery studio, anything like really cute and fun. Like I feel like I can find a lot of inspiration in that. And it's definitely just like a style that I really love. And that's what I do like passion projects on. So yeah.
I love that. That's great. Okay, we already talked about social media a little bit, but what tips would you give to someone who is like, I want to start a social media following, right? I want to build a following right now because I want to get my work out there so that people can book me, but it's such a crowded market. What should I do? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot that can go into that. But I think for one, going into it with a little bit of a strategy. So knowing, number one, like who your audience is, like we kind of talked about, just like know who you're there to serve and what kind of content is going to best serve them. That's something that you can just always reference whenever you're like, you have an idea, like, is this going to work for my audience or like this segment of my audience? And also having some kind of differentiation with your account is very important, whether it be with your personality. So your personality can really set you apart. And this kind of leads into something else I was going to talk about with showing your face and having like your personality show in your social media, which can be really scary. But it is, I think, really important. It's not like absolutely essential. You can still grow without having a distinct person behind the account. But I think it's a lot harder. But if you do show your face, show your personality, show a little more authenticity and behind the scenes, that can bring such a human side to your brand and your account that people can connect with a lot more. So I think that is really, really huge. And it can be like a really scary thing. I know when I first started talking on like stories or like doing voiceovers, it was like, I felt so embarrassed, but it's like, no one cares. And it like just helps so much because having a human connection through your account is so strong rather than just seeing someone like drawing and you can't like see the person or anything like that. So it just builds a lot stronger of a connection with that.
I think on the human connection piece, like people forget that the whole point of social media is human connection. Mm-hmm. Like literally that's the whole point. The whole point is to connect with other humans and like form relationships. So I know people get so nervous to share bits of themselves. And I always do like a check where I'm like, is this offending anyone? Is this harmful in any way? Or like, can I feel good about this? Like people can be like, ew, your art is ugly. And I'll be like, okay, like don't buy it. But for people to like come at your character or like your values is a whole other story. Mm-hmm. But the whole point of social media is connection. And so if you're just scrolling, that's not human connection. But if you're engaging and like commenting and getting offline too, I don't know if you knew this, but Katie and I met via DMs. Like I just slid into her DMs and I was like, hey, your work is really cool. And she was like, who are you? No, I'm just kidding. She was like, cool, let's work together. And now we have a business. And I mean, we live in different states. So yeah, it's all about human connection. I love when people share like these weird, some of my favorite ones are when people are just like sharing the weirdest shit that they do, but you're like, I do that too.
Yeah. Literally every time.
Share it on the internet. Like, yeah, it's just so good. Or dog videos. I mean,
I love sharing my dog. Yeah. Amazing.
What kind of dog?
He's an Aussie Doodle. Yeah.
Wait,
so sweetheart.
I'm pretty sure that's what Katie has.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. They're so sweet.
No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Her dog's name is P.O.P.
Okay. My dog's Hopper. P.O.P. That's a unique name.
Well, it's from Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Okay. So I haven't seen that. I don't know.
You need to watch it. It's really good.
Okay.
It's also pretty old at this point. Like old as in like over 10 years old, not like black and white.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Okay. But I think go ahead.
So yeah, I think picking up with we're talking about growth on social media. Yeah. So yeah, showing your face is like really powerful and like human connection and like interacting with your audience, really being there. And so having strategy in that regard and differentiation, you can differentiate in a few ways with like your content. Maybe it's the style. Some people do really cinematic like styles of posting, or you can do something really casual, but just having something that kind of sets you apart in like a way that your audience will choose you, maybe like above someone else if they had a choice, just creating some loyalty with your account. So I think that can be really helpful. And it's like all of this kind of relates to a brand as well. So it's kind of mirrored in both. But off of that, so having that strategy in place going into it, and then kind of setting in place like your content pillars. So knowing the different types of content you're going to create and making sure those are aligned with who your audience is and like what they need and what, would be valuable to them. And with that, also creating some different styles in which you're going to create your content, whether it be talking head, you're going to be talking to the camera, or if you're going to do voiceovers, or maybe just text in your videos. Just looking at different types of content. You can also look over different accounts, see what works for them and what you might be able to adopt. That's also just huge overall, is seeing like analyzing what works for other people and what you might be able to apply to your own work, but maybe in a different way. So you're not just copying, but seeing like if there's like hooks people use, maybe you can have your own hook. Or if there's just certain styles of content that you can also use that would be valuable for what you're creating. Now, outside of that, also, when you create content, you want to make it like visually appealing and like audio is good. I didn't have a mic forever, but I have one now and it's like so much better. I would like prioritize having a mic over having like a really good camera, because if the audio is bad, then like that kind of completely ruins the video. But if the video is just like a little blurry, then people like will probably keep watching it. So just having some good equipment is nice. I use my phone to film, but having a great camera is great too. But outside of that, make sure also when you get on social media that you're focusing on something that you're going to want to create content about for a long time. Like obviously if it's your business, like you're going to want to create content about that for a long time. But overall, you just want to prioritize longevity. And as I said, there's so many things that go into it. And another one is with longevity, like making sure that you're kind of spreading out content, like with what I said before about how I post 3 times a week. That's what's manageable for me. But also with the type of videos you create, kind of spreading out maybe certain ideas over several videos. So it's not just all in one. So just focusing on making sure you're going to keep creating great content for a long time. And otherwise, just nourishing your community is great, and learning about like, I really don't know much about the algorithm except that like putting keywords like everywhere you can is great. And I don't know, posting consistently, but
I think along with the consistency, I love that the way you talked about it was the same way you would talk about a client's brand. Like you are a brand, even though it is your personal brand and it's your personal account, it's still a brand. And so you still want to be showing up consistently and with the proper messaging. But I think something about the way that you talk to people and the way that you figure out that unique voice that makes your work yours. It doesn't have to be this like lofty thing that no one else has ever done. Like I follow several people who do get ready with me videos, or I follow several people who do meal prep videos, and not one of them is doing it in a way that I've never ever seen before. It's just that their combination of things that they're doing is what I like. Whether it's like, oh, they're doing meal prep and it has their kid's lunchbox in it, or whether there's humor involved, or whether like the angles are funny or whatever. Like there's this one that I follow that does meal prep for her daughter's lunchbox, and she like makes it sound like she's a private chef, but it's like, I got this ice from a faraway country called Arendelle, which is like from Frozen. And it's so funny to me. And I like can't stop watching, even though like that's not what my kids' lunches look like. My daughter doesn't know what Arendelle is, but it's just like the combination of the things that you put together. So it doesn't have to be this thing that no one has ever done before or that is so unique. It's the combination of how you do them and then the consistency of doing them.
Yeah. And just like finding that like differentiation, like in like, it doesn't have to be huge. Like you said, like in the little things, like in maybe the way you present the content, like with you, like being humorous or something, like that's the way you can be different. And it doesn't have to be huge, but just like maybe choose some different things that you do differently and focus on those and just be really great and be like the person that people will come to, and they know what type of content you're going to create, and it creates that loyalty. So yeah, it's huge.
Okay. So I want to do a rapid fire round and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just like first thing that comes to your head, what typeface do you always reach for?
Montserrat and Arborea, always the ones I don't know how to say, but it's like those clean ones that I always need to like pair with the more complex ones. So yeah,
love it.
Love
okay,
those.
what's a trend? What's a design trend that just like really grinds your gears that you're like, I've had enough. Let's move on.
That one where people do the outlines of drawings and like it's like an empty face, like they do like a sketch, and it's like it's just people pay like $40 for people to just do it on their iPads. And it's not really like a design trend, but it's like faceless like drawings and like it's
faceless,
I don't know.
the faceless, yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. How do you like your pizza?
I like pineapple on my pizza. So like pepperoni and pineapple.
People say it's either
pineapple.
Pineapple or they don't. Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't really discriminate against pizza. Like I'll eat any pizza. I am gluten-free though, so like it's a real bummer, but I'll eat any pizza. Okay. Would you rather use the typeface curls or lose your thumb?
Oh my God. I think this is an unanswerable question, to be honest.
Too hard. Okay. Who are 2 designers that you're really inspired by right now?
I mean, always Abby Connick. She's amazing in brand design.
I don't know awesome. Why. I think because you guys are both like in the social media space of brand design. And so it like makes total sense that the 2 of you would like hit it off.
Yeah, no, she's great. I haven't like interacted with her a ton, but I always love her work and she's amazing. And then recently I've been loving James Bernard. These are really big. I'm trying to think of some more niche, like smaller people, but James Bernard is amazing. He is very experienced and creates some great like logo mark designs. Yeah, those are the 2 that come to mind. But yeah, there's so many amazing designers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great community. And yeah, it's amazing. This community is so vast and there's room for everyone in it. We're so excited to keep chatting with people on the podcast, to keep getting to know them over Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, I'm glad it connected us. Okay, yeah. Last question. 2 non-design related things that you're really into right now. They could be products, books, fancy new soap, anything. Pumpkin something because it's fall.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All the fall stuff. But I have my water bottle, which is the first thing that came to mind, which is my favorite. It's an Owala water bottle.
Yeah.
And the colors of it are just my favorite thing. Like they're just so unique. That. And then the other thing I would probably say is my headphones, not the ones I'm wearing, but the ones that are charging, which are these Bose Quiet Comfort headphones. And they're like noise canceling and like so comfortable. And they were kind of a splurge, but they have been honestly really worth it. So I love that as well.
I love that. The water bottle is so funny because typically when I ask that question, I say like, it could be anything. It could be a water bottle. And Katie is always like, Alana, what is with you and water bottles? Like, why do you think everyone has like a favorite water bottle? And I'm like, I just don't think she gets it.
They don't? I have a favorite water bottle. I have way too many water bottles, honestly.
We have like 4 Owalas in this house and like 3 Stanleys, several Hydro Flasks, some Nalgene's. Yeah.
You can never have too many.
Yeah, Camelback. We've got them all. Like formal like spill tests coming soon. It's great. Anyway, this has been great. Let's wrap up with just where can people find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, TikTok, Lucy Eden Design is my handle on both of those. I'm on YouTube, not very actively, but that's also Lucy Eden Design. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Love it. Okay, so thanks for coming on. It's been great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you in person soon, too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, me too. I'm excited.
Awesome. All right. All good things.